Hi, thanks for taking my call, David, and I so thankful and grateful to be speaking to both of you tonight. Michael, I just want to thank you again for the work you've done. It's been awesome. It's just been great. And if I could just make a few comments before I get to my question, I came across your work through a friend, and the one piece through my own research was they have it on YouTube as the Talk of the Mountain, where that you as you climb the mountain, it gets harder to breathe and this and that, and you could either go down the mountain and have a lesser view or keep going up the mountain and see all the vistas and the beautiful scenery, and you'll be alone. And me viewing this tarot now is gaining the knowledge to explore life and see life in a different setting and image than what you're taught by, I guess you could say, the people around you. So I'm just grateful for that, and just wanted to thank you guys for doing that and bringing that to us, to people that seek this knowledge and need this knowledge to get back on track. Michael, my question for you is, you alluded to the correspondence of the High Priestess to the Death card, and I'm kind of intrigued by that. And I don't know if you want to go into that now, or maybe just give us a little hint or a little preview of what you meant by that.
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. I'll probably be able to explore it more when I get to the Death card, because I can't think off the top of my head about any more of the correspondences, except that they relate to that mortificatio, to the idea of dissolution, which has enormous meaning for the spiritual journey, because like we saw, the fool travels light. The Siddhartha road is so full of obstacles that you can't take a whole caravan along with you. It's even in the Christian tradition of the Pilgrim's Progress, the pilgrim travels very, very light. So this concept of, and this concept is not going to go away just because we're in the 21st century. Spiritual laws are eternal. So man today, woman today, has to obey that same law. And so the Priestess and the Death card represent that. If you look underneath the horse's hooves on the Death card, you see a king and a pope. So these are the ones who've accumulated, isn't it? They represent the rich men. They represent the men of authority that impose their authority and all of that. And according to this card, they're the ones that are going to be trampled underfoot. Again, basically the whole idea of shedding. In the Crowley deck, you see the famous skeleton with his gigantic scythe, and you see these enormous webs that have to be cut away. Fantastic symbol, and he's wearing the crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, which always represented enlightenment. Because, as I said earlier before the break, the Egyptians would use physical things, worldly things in nature, to represent spiritual states of consciousness. So the unification of two parts of the land of Egypt represented the unification of, the polarities within the human being, the masculine and the feminine. And that's what you see in the Crowley Death card. And the scythe cutting away all those webs is clearly the webs of illusion that somebody has within themselves. So in true spiritual life, accumulating and getting and having and being God's special pet, where he just downloads on you loads of other things, in the end, material belongings and spiritual belongings in the same, your reason for getting them can be still very materialistic. The reason why a person wants to go to heaven and sit at the right hand of God can be just as materialistic as that he wants a Mercedes and a nice looking wife and a house with a swimming pool. It's all in the motive. It's all in the agenda. And really, spiritual people, so-called religious spiritual people often have very materialistic and narcissistic reasons for why they want things. But the real journey is that, as Lao Tzu said in the Tao Te Ching, right? The Tao Te Ching, make use of the nothingness therein, and you shall have the use of the window, or you shall have the use of the pot. There's a whole other concept of creative emptiness. As I said, Jacob Bohm, the German mystic, and Meister Eckhart, and these kinds of people And then later in Germany, the Schelling, Friedrich Schelling come up with this concept as well, that there's some other capacity that we have completely forgotten today. In Krishnamurti tradition, often, a teacher will enter the room and teach nothing. They just sit there in silence and see how hard that is to do. Everybody's shuffling and feeling uncomfortable and, hey, should I speak or should you speak? Oh. And suddenly the racket, the noise of the mind, and just your complete insecurity, the inability to even just sit still. And then we're going to find enlightenment? We're going to change the world? The Taoist says you can't even sit still. You've lost it. You're not even in command of your own body, your own being. And you're going to run around and fix things? So this fallowness, which is very much in nature. And so the death card is the winter cycle. That's the only correspondence I can think of at this time, is that it represents, and probably the priestess could be thought of this as well, but certainly the death card is October. It's Scorpio. It's the winter cycle. So the allusion is to the fact that there is this fallowness. There's a creative death. There's a deconstruction. There's no such thing as destruction, but there is deconstruction. Gods like Shiva, gods like Hern. The list goes on of these deities that represented this facet, and all true magicians know about it. It's the shedding of the great cloak, It's the shedding, it's the dying, it's the walking into the wilderness, it's the walkabout. Yeah, and it's a tremendous motif, and it can't be forgotten about just because we happen to be living in the 21st century.
And I think you just brought that together because I think you did say it's the person you are today. You had to let something go. You had to like leave it in your past to become the person you are today.
Many things.
So you were constantly reinventing. Constantly reinventing yourself, is I think is what you said. So basically, you just kind of tied it all together. So again, thank you. And the last question is: we shouldn't be afraid of the tarot deck, correct?
Oh, of course not. I mean, that's just back alley idiocy. This is just your Sun newspaper drivel that the Christian church gets a lot of hay out of by demonizing everything that doesn't, demonizing black cats, demonizing ladders, demonizing numbers, demonizing the color black, demonize the tarot. I mean, this Christian church has had a field day demonizing red hair, and whatever else. It's incredible. It's incredible. And the tarot is involved in that process of being sullied. But of course, this is, an intelligent man knows that there's nothing to fear but fear itself.
Thank you, and have a great night.
Thanks a lot for your call. Thanks for your call, mate.
Thanks a lot, caller. Call back anytime. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and stay tuned for more. I'm eager to get to the Hermit, and I'm eager to get to the Hangman and Death. Some fantastic stuff to bring out about those archetypes right there.
Oh, yeah, no, we're very much looking forward to it, and the series is just going to keep going on. Those that aren't aware, we're obviously not stopping with the first 3. We're going for 22 cards, and you can get even more in-depth information from Michael on these subjects, and you can visit his Taroscope's website. And, Michael, that is the best place for people to get involved with the Mystery School and to contact you about that, correct?
Oh, yeah, the information. They can just email me, and I'll send them the facts. But it is on Taroscopes.com that they'll find a long intro video to the Taroscopic system. I insist that they watch that because we go into why my system wants to connect the 4 disciplines together like we see on the magician's table. There's a very good reason why those 4 arts are linked, number 1, and why this weird numerology, of the 7 and the 12 and then the 3 and the 4 exists within each of the divination arts. You see the 3-4 in the Kabbalah because there's 2 pillars have 3 sephira and then 1 has 4, so there's a 3-4 there. In astrology, you have the 3 modalities and 4 elements, so you have a 3-4 there. And then in the tarot, you have 3 decks with 4 elements, right? You've got the major arcana, the minor arcana, and the court cards, that's 3, and then fire, water, air, and earth, there's 4. So this weird 3-4 architecture is in all the main serious divination arts of the Western magical tradition. That's because those numbers connect to consciousness, and that's why those things work. So that intro video on Taroscopes is basically an answer to the skeptics It's right to be a skeptic. It's right to ask a question of what are these things and why would I want to waste my time with it? And sure, it's a lot of nonsense, right? Well, that's my answer to it, that no, it's not a lot of nonsense, and it can be easily proven that why these arts work. You know, when you're doing readings or when you're doing some other kind of work with the tarot and astrology, why it works is because it has a strange archetypal link to the very roots of consciousness itself. Consciousness itself developed along the same scheme, shall we say, the same format as did these arts. So it's a credible story unfolding there. Then I also point out more about the Egyptian connection of the tarot, right? You know, we said it was Aryan, so that brings it to Ireland, but Aryan is also Egyptian as well. The Aryan culture was all over the world. And so this Aryan origins of the tarot is also explored there on that on the Taroscope's website. And then we have the card meanings. And then, you know, people can have access to the entire series we're doing now, Path of the Fool. So you can use taroscopes.com as your main hub if you want, or just come to Facebook. We'll post there, or even go over to YouTube to, as you said, Unslave Films channel. And they'll be able to access the series as a playlist, and then they can send it on to their friends. And again, on the YouTube, we add the more of the references and the sources below the YouTube window. So they'll have those, the very serious students will want that, because I may be saying something, they don't know the spelling of what I'm saying, or they've never heard of it before, you know, like some of these goddess names or some of these other points. So I always make sure that it's referenced below, you know, and if I even mention a book or a thinker, we'll have a link to that person below so that they can really dive into it deeply and, you know, see just how different this series is from a lot of the other garbage that's out there on this subject.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And Michael, we got another question from the chat room. Someone's asked.